Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I'm going to be giving you my full guide to the Road to Berlin event. Now that we've seen all of the content, finally we actually got to see what Berlin looked like yesterday, almost halfway through this PvE, which stands for Player versus Environment, but really all you need to know is that you're no longer playing against players, you're playing against bots. Now, all of you who have watched my IS-2S review will know that this is the main prize for the Road to Berlin event. Well, actually, when I think about it, is it the main prize? Not really sure. If you manage to complete all 4 stages, you're going to be able to get the IS-2 shielded completely for free. Is it an incredible tank? Well, go watch the review on it. I'm not going to discuss that here. It's okay, though. That's pretty much what you need to know. However, I guess the main reward for this event will be to get the bounty ventilation. Now, just what is a bounty ventilation? Well, this is a special piece of equipment that allows you to get 7.5% crew skills on any tank that you put it on after you pay 3 million credits. Until you pay 3 million credits, it's going to be 5% crew skills, just like a regular piece of equipment. But the main thing about this, compared to the bond equipment, the ones that you have to spend about 5,000 bonds to put on each of your individual tanks, is that unlike that equipment, which you can't demount for gold, or if you've got one of Wargaming's demounting kits, you can demount this for as little as 10 gold. And that can give you a tremendous advantage on the battlefield. If you are, for example, grinding marks of excellence and you're focusing on one individual tank, unlike me, I play a whole plethora of vehicles, I play lots of variety, so it's not so useful for me. But if you like to focus on one vehicle at a time, then for 10 gold, you can put it on that tank, move it to the next one, move it to the next one, and you're literally going to be 1.25% better than anyone who does not have the bounty ventilation. Now, I personally totally disagree with this. I don't think we need to have that as the new standard. It just feels as if the crew skills and the amount of DPM and the amount of speed, the amount of view range, the amount of camera rating that all the vehicles is just getting crazy. And unless you min-max your tanks and just play in a very one-dimensional fashion for it, sometimes just focusing on one tank which you can actually put your bounty equipment on, just feels frustrating. In the end, this is pay to win. If you pay 10 gold, you can make your tank 1.25% better than any other vehicle. So that's really the new standard. Whether you like it, whether you hate it, Wargaming have decided to put it in the game, and today I'm going to give you my opinion about how hard it is to be able to get this piece of equipment and my tips for being able to get it. Alright, so to be able to get through all of the different stages, there's no way you're going to do it with level 1 units. Obviously, you can see that you need 500 points to get through stage 1, 2,000 for stage 2, 6,000 for stage 3. And one thing I'd like to clarify is this is not cumulative. So it doesn't go 500 and then once you go from 500 to 2,000, no. This is 2,000 additional points after the 500. So that means you're going to have to get 15k at the end and not just have to get like an extra 3k, if that makes sense. I was hoping that that was going to be the case, but it definitely isn't. So to be able to get points, you have to do well in battles of the PvE game mode, and to be able to achieve that, you have to try and level up your units. There are 5 different battalions of different tanks that you can get. Basically, you have Soviet tank destroyers, you have Soviet heavy tanks, you have Soviet medium tanks, you have American medium tanks, and British heavy tanks. I'll be talking about which one I think is better in just a minute. So firstly, you start off with stage 1 tanks. These are roughly about tier 4, tier 5 kind of vehicles. Then you move on to your tier 6 or tier 7, and then you move up to tier 7 or tier 8 for the final tier. And probably more tier 7 when I think about it, considering that you're playing the Churchill Black Print, if you choose to play the British heavies. Now, when you're playing stage 1, you'll get roughly about 21 to up to 27, possibly even 30 points if you do incredibly well, but you should be thinking that you're more often than not you're going to get 21 points for a victory against the bots. When you get to your tier 2 units, you're going to be getting up to about 50 points. And when you get to tier 3, you're going to be getting 70 to 90 points depending on how well you do. So immediately, once you get to tier 3, you're kind of getting triple the points that you got at stage 1. And so if you want to make good progress with the operation, then you kind of want to get to stage 3 as quickly as you can on one of your vehicles. The problem is that to be able to get to stage 3, it is almost fundamentally impossible. To be able to get to level 2, I think it's like 800 points, and then to be able to get to level 3, you need 3,000 points. Yeah, good luck trying to play about 100, 110 games of this game mode without any kind of boosters to be able to get to stage 3. That would be absolutely painful. And so to be able to accelerate your progress, there are orders in it. Now, once a day, you manage to get 1 5 times experience game. Very useful. That can make 100 points, way better than 20, right? If you choose to buy premium bundles for 150 gold, you can have 1 10 times boost. Oof, that's very expensive. Alternatively, you can buy specialist bundles like ace tanker bundles to be able to get 10 times bonus games. You can get them in lots of 10 or 20, which I guess is a way better deal than just buying the individual ones. Although the individual ones are still there if you need a top up towards the end of the event. If, however, you choose to manage to get the big bundle, which I've already purchased, I think it's like 3,750 gold, and you can unlock everything at tier 3, which pretty much gives you a tremendous advantage. But obviously, that's not free to play at all. Alright, there's another way that you can get the orders as well, and that is that you actually do missions inside the random queue of World of Tanks. If you manage to finish in the top certain amount, I'm going to tell you in a second what it is. I think it's like the top 10, then the top 5, then the top 3 of experience, that you can actually get yourself these 15 times bonuses. Yep, there you can see it. Top 7, top 5, top 3 in tier 7 and above tanks. So don't think you're going to be playing your low tier cheese tanks to be able to get through this. Now you can get 3 tokens a day, they're 15 times boosts, that's super powerful, and hopefully all of you have been saving them up over the last few days. Because I can tell you that now that the Berlin map was just opened yesterday, there's an opportunity to get huge progress for this event. And that's because you've got roughly about a 1 in 3 chance of getting on the Berlin map. But if you do, you're going to get 2 times victory points for the battle. And the reason why I was waiting for the weekend to be able to make this video is that I found that this 2 times victory point bonus actually stacks with all of the other bonuses. And so if you manage to finish in the top 753 and you get your 15 times token and you activate it on your specific tank regiment and then you get in on the Berlin map, then you have a 30 times bonus in effect. And I could tell you, you can get 2,000 points of progress towards this event if you're able to achieve on the Berlin map. Of course, if your team absolutely sucks and you're unable to carry it, then you might be getting as little as 0 points if you can't make it past stage 1. And so my thorough recommendation for this event is try and focus on one individual tank branch to be able to get towards level 3 and then save all your 15 times tickets and then hopefully make a good platoon inside the garage with your friends, or try and connect to the Road to Berlin talk thing, which doesn't even work. Maybe play with some of your clanmates, save up all those 15 times tokens, play with some people who you know are going to play well, make a platoon, and then spam those 15 times tokens only when you have reached stage 3. And then it's not going to take you too long to be able to do it. It's still going to take you a few hours, but you will easily be able to make your way through to get an IS-2 shielded for free. Or alternatively, get through stage 5, which is what you really want to do to be able to get that bounty ventilation. So do not think that you have to get everything to level 3. You don't have to do that. Just focus on one. Getting to level 3 is your ticket to make those 15 times boosts work, and then cross your fingers and hope that you get on the Berlin map. So next you might be thinking, well, what is going to be the best one to be able to level up? Well, if you want absolute raw damage per minute, you do get points based on your damage and also killing the elite units inside the game, then look no further than the Beast Slayers. These Soviet tank destroyers have the highest damage per minute. They've got great alpha damage, great penetration, but no turrets, which doesn't make you very flexible. These tanks I would recommend for somebody who's pretty good at the game, but I wouldn't recommend them for players who are not good at the game. You're going to struggle unless you know how to play your tank destroyers. The bots are going to kick your butt, and you won't make use of that damage per minute, and you'll probably have been best with a turret. Now, probably the all-round best unit inside the game, the IS-2V. This is the all-purpose tank. It's got good armor, it's got good alpha, it's got good penetration, it's got a turret. It can do everything. Its consumables are a little bit weak. It doesn't have the bonus of having incendiary shells. I'm going to show you exactly what those do in the gameplay in a minute. But it can put a minefield, which I think is one of the worst power-ups. It has got a mortar strike. While it's got a short delay, it's not too useful, I feel, because it's just so short range as well. So the T-34-85, I really feel like this tanker, T-44-85 I should say, I really feel like this thing's a bit of a glass cannon. Its DPM doesn't feel too special. Its penetration as well is significantly lower than the other two tanks. And while it does get incendiary rounds and the fantastic Katyusha rockets, which do massive damage and also set tanks on fire in an area and a very long range, I personally wouldn't recommend the T-4485 that much. Next up, let's talk about the T-26E3, kind of like a pseudo-Pershing. It's got good gun depression, a little bit better penetration and alpha damage than the T-4485, but really its damage per minute is awful as well. I wouldn't recommend this one either. So, the Churchill Black Prince. This thing has a really meaty turret. It has a good chunk of hit points. Its DPM is actually pretty nice at 2,347 and is better than the other vehicles in this comparison apart from, well, I should say the turreted tanks better than the turreted tanks with regards to damage per minute. But with 8 degrees of gun depression, I honestly think the Black Prince is not that bad. If you manage to hide this thing's hull, it's fairly good. It's got a speed boost which allows it to get into position a little bit faster. But more importantly, this artillery strike that it uses is fantastic. It's huge AoE and it stuns all of the tanks in there, which makes them very vulnerable either to yourself or alternatively to your allies to be able to get a little bit more assistance. That would be kind of my tier list. I think for the best players, the best tank will be the ISU-122S because you can manage to just go and farm up some damage and get your monster points. The second best tank will be the IS-2V, or the best tank for the average to the mediocre players. I'd say the Churchill Black Prince is probably after that. And then if you're more of an advanced player, you could probably make the medium tanks work. But for me, they're just a little bit too much of glass cannons, and you need some armor to be able to be aggressive in this game mode. But anyway, that's everything you pretty much know, but how about I show you what it actually looks like? So here you go. Welcome to Berlin. And it looks like the replay file is going to be in Russian. Okay, we're just going to go with it. We're just going to accept the Russian here. I'm going to do the commentary myself, so we're not going to worry too much about that. So the first thing you realize when you load in on the Berlin map, and this was my first ever game in a tier 3 unit, is that, wow, yeah, the enemy are a little bit more badass than you really think they are going to be. The fact that you start immediately against Tiger 2s really sets the scene for what the tier 3 battles inside are all about. So you want to be a little bit... When I found my way through this choke point, I found out that it's actually really, really hard to be able to push through. But I think there are multiple versions of Berlin for you to be able to play through. And one of them, I think, also has the ability to go over the bridge. But there's no way to really avoid this choke point. Alright, so let's talk about the ISU-122S, which is what I'm playing right now. So you'll notice that I press my 6 key there to load an incendiary shell. The incendiary shells, it's far better to use them against the healthy tanks because I feel like it does percentage damage based on the enemy's health. So try and save them for the full health tanks. Now, at tier 1, you're only going to have a single incendiary. At tier 2, you're going to have 2 incendiaries, and at tier 3, you're going to have 3 incendiaries as well. You can see I'm using my airstrike there. This actually isn't really going to do anything. The airstrikes, it's definitely better to be able to use them against the more clustered enemies or even the lighter enemies there. Nevertheless, we still managed to get a good shot in, and unfortunately, I'm going to have to waste an incendiary shell into the side of the Panther Elite. And that's because the incendiary shell, you have to press it before you use it, but unfortunately, you can't actually manage to stop loading the incendiary shells. So it's not like you get 3 of them and then you have to press it, fire, press it, fire, press it, fire, and then it starts to reload. No, it's going to be the next 3 shots in a row. So once you press that incendiary button at tier 3, the next 3 shots that you fire are going to be incendiary. So you might be thinking, well, is that it? Is QB out already? No, you managed to respawn. So as you can see right here, you actually get, you start with 3 tanks, and then for every wave of enemies you manage to take out, you get +1. So you've got lives saved up. So you want to be a little bit aggressive, but you don't want to be too aggressive. Because if you're too aggressive and you throw your lives away willy-nilly, then you can leave your allies without having an entire tank on the battlefield, and then you're surely going to struggle. Alright, now let's talk about the artillery inside this game mode. And this is something that I think has been giving a lot of players a real big issue. People have been hating the fact that these Hummels just seem to do consistent, horrible damage to you. And I think making bots with artillery, they've kind of found the perfect kind of class for a bot, really. Oh god, have I gone there? I don't know. The perfect class for a bot, because the bots inside this game mode are actually incredibly devastating when they play artillery. I almost feel like they're more dangerous than regular artillery players, because they seem to be pixel perfect. Anyway, alright, so you can see at the top of the screen right now that there's 1 remaining tank to kill, and that's because the enemies are divided into regular units and elite units. You have to kill the elite units to progress the battle. So make sure that you always try and focus on the elite units if you see the timer running out, because once you've managed to kill the elite units, then you manage to progress the fight. Well, at least that's towards the end, but I think before that, you don't actually have to focus on the elite units, you just have to sometimes destroy a certain number of vehicles. So right now it's saying remaining enemy vehicles to destroy 14, that's what we've got to try and do within the time limit. So in between the stages, you'll see that circles go around the tank. It's basically the bots are doing an aerial bombard, so watch out for that, try and get into cover. And a little bit of a tip, on some of the maps you can actually get into buildings. You might be seeing that a little bit later on, or maybe not inside this replay because I don't think I knew about it. But if you can get inside a building, it actually absorbs all the artillery fire, which is very strong indeed. So you're just seeing just how absolutely monstrous the ISU-122S is. I'm trying to get myself a little bit of an aerial bombard there against the enemy tanks. Maybe we pick up a kill. Just do a little bit of damage on them and finish them off, and my allies will handle it. And then immediately we've got more bombards coming as well. These bombards, they're not like the biggest nightmare. So look at it like this. If you have a choice between reversing out in front of a tank destroyer or just sitting in the aerial bombard, you should sit inside the aerial bombard, because look at that, 54, that's not really the biggest of concern. That one, however, 198, a little bit of a bigger deal. But even with getting hit by 2 of those shells, that's still not as bad as getting hit by a Tiger, for example, or getting hit by some of the bigger tanks, maybe, as we're going to be seeing later on. It's a bit of an unfortunate low roll there. We're unable to finish off the little bot, but it's a bit interesting when you're trying to commentate on bot replays. It's like, oh no, I got unlucky, but I'm unable to finish the little bot on the enemy team. It's not really a concern. I think really what I'm trying to do in this video is just trying to impart all of the different little tips and tricks that I found out so that hopefully you can manage to dominate your games too. Alright, so one thing I should mention is that those Panzer IVs on Berlin and also the Tier 3, they actually fire derp guns, which is incredibly annoying. The derp guns are infuriating, especially if you're in your more lightly armored tanks. A lot like this one. They will just do consistent damage to you, which is irritating at best. You're not going to live very long through a whole swarm of Panzer IVs. But look at that damage from the Tiger too. But luckily, we can see that it's got a stock turret, and so we actually managed to do 390 average damage plus 182 for the fire. These incendiary shells on the ISU-122S are just absolutely massively proficient for being able to get the damage in. So a bit of an interesting game here. I'm playing with some friends in a platoon. We've got a bit of a pre-made going here, and we're all up to about 5 kills. We're all up to about 5,000-6,000 damage. We're doing a good job. But slowly but surely you can see that we are starting to make our way towards the enemy team. And I wonder if I can free cam it. Oh, I can free cam it. Oh, I'm happy about that. I can free cam Berlin. All right, well, while we're managing to smash some of the bots, let's take a look around at the map that Wargaming have created and have a bit of a vibe for what this is all like. So we've got the destroyed buildings over here. I don't actually know what that building is. Somebody tell me in the comments down below. It looks like it's a train station, but I'm not sure. Maybe it is a train station. It doesn't look like there's any trains inside it. Somebody will tell me in the comments. Wargaming have done a pretty darn good job. There is one building, however, that I definitely know what it's going to be, and that is it. It is the Reichstag, yeah? This is, I guess, was this the parliamentary building? I was in Berlin, I think, last year, or was it the year before for TwitchCon? But yeah, Wargaming have done a great job in actually making, I think, Berlin historical, and the way that you play through the map is pretty funky as well. So I just want to talk about this bunker that you have here. The only way to be able to get into this bunker, you approach it from this angle, facing the Reichstag, and you can actually get into it from this location. You can use this bunker to be able to... What? I didn't click that. Sorry. You can actually manage to get into the bunker via the right-hand side, and then once you've managed to get there, you can look through the windows, which is pretty powerful. You can manage to get shots in, but I don't really feel like they allow you too much flexibility once you're inside, unless you're in a turreted tank, or you manage to get some kind of donkey that's just driven out in the open. Anyway, so those are my biggest tips and tricks for this game mode. I recommend to just try and get your damage out. As long as you've got 2 tanks left, be a little bit aggressive. If you've only got 1 tank left, however, try and let your team do some of the spotting and just make sure that you don't ever get taken out completely. Because if you get taken out completely, then your team is going to be in for a hard time. Alright, so we managed to get a nice shot in there through the side of the Panther Elite. 406 damage. Now we're up to 7,900 with our 5 kills. But really, at the end here, this is the climax of the Berlin event. Oh, little Hummel, you've been shooting at me all game, but now it's my turn to shoot you. The blooming Tiger 2 puts 386 damage through the side of my vehicle, but we're going to get some revenge there through the side of the tank. This little dip, this trench that you can see via the river that goes, well, I'm not even sure if it's a river, probably not a river. Maybe this sluice along the side here is very powerful for being able to deal with your opponents. If you definitely just always be in cover. If you're not in cover, apart from when you're trying to hopefully try and finish off tanks like this, you want to roll between the different hull down positions, just like you would in any game of World of Tanks. And if you manage to do that, then you will be able to get flanking fire, and you'll be able to just absolutely feast up. So it looks like we're firing our incendiary shells again. Now we're going to use one of our strafe runs. Going to do a little bit of damage to the Panzer IV. Not sure if I need to waste the shell, but I decided that I would do anyway. So a bit of a waste there of the strafe run, but oh well. So one of the exciting things about the Berlin map here, and when you're playing it at tier 3, is that you actually get to see the biggest units inside the game. What they're going to be, what are going to be the final commanders, the final enemy force that we have to shut down here to see if we can manage to take victory in front of the Reichstag on this Berlin map. Alright, so a big round there through the side of the Panther, another one's going to be approaching me from behind. And yeah, the bots, they're not the smartest things, really. But, oh, there's the HE Panzer IV. Come on, that's not what we want to see. HE Panzer IV just finishing me off. But luckily, we've got some tanks. We can manage to respawn. Well, actually, when I say we've got some tanks, we've only got one tank more. So I best be careful. Because also there's a player called Derpy Squirrel on my team who's also down to one tank as well. So maybe I'm being a little bit nonchalant with my lives. So what I'm going to do now is I'm hopefully going to tone it down a little bit, although I'm not even sure if I toned it down a little bit. Alright, so I'm really done with the commentary of the actual gameplay here. Now I'm going to be talking about what I actually think about the Berlin mode overall. So, it's a bit of a funny one, because I think Wargaming have done a great job with the bot AI. It's not super challenging to play against, but it is challenging in a way. They're not idiots. I haven't encountered that many bugs where the bots just do nothing, although it does happen sometimes. They'll just drive out in front of you and proceed to not shoot you for a little while, which I'm quite happy about, because in the end, you know, you just want to try and mop up your damage. What is that tank, by the way, on our left? It's a Tiger 2 Elite that we're going to have to shut down at the end of this game. It's the last vehicle remaining on the enemy team, well, at least of this wave, I should say. But apart from the fact that the AI is cool and that it's quite fun to blow off some steam with your friends, it gets so boring so quickly, ladies and gents. At least for me. I find this game mode incredibly boring after you've played 10, 20, 30 games. And I'm just having to grind it for the sake of it now. I'm grinding it to be able to get the IS-2S. But more importantly, I'm grinding it so I can stay competitive inside the PvP of World of Tanks, because I want the bounty vents. Of course, I need those bounty vents. I'm going to be able to put them on any tank that I want to min-max. It's 7.5% crew skill and it only costs me 10 gold. That's nothing to a pay-to-win player like me who buys all of Wargaming's gambling loot crates and has an infinite amount on my account. You know? It's just a bit lame, really, that I have to grind against bots to be able to remain competitive inside the random game mode. And while it's exciting at first, and while it's interesting, and while it's a bit of a laugh with your friends, eventually it just becomes a stale, boring grind that you have to play the random queue to be able to get your boosters and then go and use them to grind bots, and then sometimes your team sucks and you're unable to carry and then you waste your booster, at least that's what I've heard. And even though you can face a mouse at the end of Berlin, is it really like, oh, is it the highlight? No, I'm not so sure. As we shut down the mouse, then we're going to proceed to deal with the other mouse. I actually think that Berlin is probably one of the easier maps that you can get on at tier 3. I just feel like the range and the distance that you can engage your opponents is definitely more favorable than I think some of the more close quarters maps, such as Runeberg, and also how they've chopped up some of the front line into one of the PvE game mode as well. And so there are some things I like about it, there are some things I hate about it. One thing that I will say about this game mode is actually quite promising, because hopefully Wargaming can add to it. Hopefully Wargaming can use what they've developed to try and make a more interesting PvE game mode, or maybe have something that you can just play to train. Honestly, I think that this would be a fantastic resource for new players to be able to play at the start of their World of Tanks adventures, to be able to figure out about angling, to be able to figure out about how their guns work, to practice their aim, to be able to try all of the different kinds of ammunition. I think to have bots like this in some kind of a training room for players would actually be fantastic. I guess the only issue that Wargaming will have is that it probably requires quite a lot of computational power on their servers, or to be able to make the bots think and to program the AI, because each of them individually is going to be doing their own thing. And so I don't think that they're probably going to profit from that, but whether it would be a fantastic learning resource for all of the new players, I think that would definitely be the case. But I'd be really interested to hear what you all have to say about this PvE game mode in the comments down below. Maybe because it's just not my cup of tea, and because I feel the need to have to grind for that bounty vent to stay competitive in the game, that it's kind of grinding down my soul a little bit, because really at the end of the day, there's a reason why we want to play against players and not against bots, because it's more of a challenge, they do different things, they're not so predictable, and you don't start to drift away and kind of fall asleep at your keyboard. Have you all been absolutely loving this game mode all the way to the end of Stage 4, Stage 5? What do you think about it? Because for me, personally, while Wargaming are showing promising development of their AI, and maybe it's something they can lead to being interesting later on, I like the Berlin map, and I like the fact they've given us the IS-2S as a reward for it. This game mode is just really not my cup of tea personally, and I still can't agree with Wargaming putting the bounty vents behind a tremendous paywall, or an absolute grind of monotony play wall. Anyway, that's it for today, ladies and gents. I hope you enjoyed this one, and maybe it was just useful for you. If it was, give it a thumbs up, but if you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And if you're watching this video as it's released on Sunday, it's time for the World of Tanks Tech Tree Showcase right now on twitch.tv/QuickyBaby. And this week, the majority of you want to see the FV4005 Stage 2, so come along while I embrace the British turreted tank destroyers, ending up with the highest alpha damage in the game, and also the most expensive 8,000 credit shells that I'm sure a lot of you will want me to spend frivolously. And so, if you've never been to one of my tech tree showcases before, they're basically like miniature tank review all the way up the tech tree, so you can see if it's a line that's worth grinding, or alternatively, if you already have the tanks, you can pick up a few tips and tricks. Wow, amazing. Sign me up, right? So I'm really looking forward to seeing you all right now. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.